So the client really had a vision of having a central U-shaped bar. And one of the challenges when you put a bar in the middle of a space or a kitchen is that it's not generally the most efficient use of space. But what we loved about it in this space is it created this heart in this space. I'm Amanda Hamilton, and I am the CEO and founder of Amanda Hamilton Interior Design. We are sitting in Kama Restaurant, which is located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And we are right in the heart of the inner city in a neighborhood called the Beltline, which also borders another really vibrant neighborhood called Victoria Park. Lots of restaurants around here. One of the things that you'll see when you first enter the restaurant is a series of arches. I always love repetition in a space. If you do one arch, it needs to be like a really big arch. It needs to be a feature. But when you do repetition of anything, repetition of artwork, repetition of a design detail, it just creates a very strong impact. In addition, they're obviously very popular right now too. So it's this combination of trying to make a space that feels very, very relevant, but that is still speaking to, these places that have been designed years and years and years ago. One of the things to think about when you're creating a space that's leaning on both sort of, antiquated things from the past and then merging that with modern is that you really want to mix materials, and you also want to make things really interesting. One of the things that we love to do is really layer materials. So as an example, there's not just one wood tone throughout the space. We have a warmer wood on the table, and then we have a blonder wood on the chairs. That would be one example. We also love to mix metals. However, in this space, we did a lot of brass. And so there's little touches of that in the lights, there's touches of that around the bar, and then we came up with this really cool light fixture above the bar, which again kind of speaks to that old world charm with the brass and the tassels, but it's done in a really contemporary way. I always love putting plants in space. It breathes a lot of light into space. We like real plants. There's just something about them that makes you feel like you're transported. And then the other thing that we really, really loved in here, the details that we loved, is the banquettes. The banquettes have mixes of leather and vinyl and different patterns and different colors. There's interesting details on the back of them with screen details, little leg details that make them interesting. You want the person that's sitting down to dine not just to be looking at the entire room, but also, they're looking at their table, they're looking at the materials next to them. You want them to experience that in a really micro level, especially since that's where they spend most of their time when they're actually in a restaurant. When selecting the lighting, we like to think about it alongside the furniture. We look at lighting like art, right? They really are these really beautiful sculptural pieces that help define a room. So not only are they functional, but they're also this aesthetic piece that add a lot to the room. So when we're thinking about lighting, we want to think about wall sconces, we want to think about down lights, up lights, general lighting. And so there is a lot of different types of lighting in here. Of course, I have mentioned the bar. We love the tasseled lights above the bar. That was really intended to ground the space. That's the nice thing about dropping lighting from the ceiling, is you're creating a delineation. So again, you can do that with walls, you can do that with furniture, but you can also do that with lighting. So you'll notice above the banquettes in some of the seating areas that we've run linear, pendants that are sort of, again, there's that repetition that's coming up. That creates a much stronger, design intent than, say, a few pendants hung here and there. And then there's these really beautiful kind of artful sconces throughout the room, which really throw a beautiful light, but then also help to add. So you're not just filling the walls with meaningless art. They really are the art on the walls, and they also highlight some of the architecture in the space. So our design process always is started with a design discovery meeting where we spend 2 or 3 hours really getting to know our client. We want to understand what keeps them up at night, what's going to lead to a successful project before we even start talking about design. And it's always this marry between the form and function as well. We want to talk about how a space is going to function. I always sort of say that anyone can design a beautiful space, any designer can do that, but not everyone can design a beautiful space that's both functional and beautiful. And also that is going to have legs and is going to be enduring, is going to live in a community and create a little bit of a legacy project. So we start there in the design process. And once we have all of that shaped, that's when we come back to the client and we present a concept to them. We really want them to sort of understand that we were listening, this is what we heard, and this is what we want to sort of put forward as the concept. If that all goes well, that's when we dig into design. That's when we really start thinking about those details. Like, how do we look, for example, to a Moroccan market, and how do we pull color from that market that feels really authentic, so that every single piece in the restaurant does have a story behind it. There is, there's intention behind it. There's a thoughtfulness. We're not just designing a beautiful space. We really are trying to be reflective of that original concept. We call that concept the North Star, so that throughout the process, which can sometimes take 6 to 9 months, from start to finish of the design, that we can always go back to that original design intent. One of the interesting things in this space as well is that the chef previously had another restaurant and had a collection of a few pieces of furniture, some neons, and some other, artifacts like lighting, and we were able to incorporate it into the space. So it's a little bit of a nod to his previous restaurant, which was Workshop, which I always love. And again, it's this story piece, and it's also a piece, I think, for him that makes him feel like he's still at home, So you kind of carry on the legacy of former projects in a new space, and I think that's something that we've done here quite seamlessly, and you wouldn't know that these pieces were in another restaurant previously.